Hey everyone, today I'm going to post my tutorial on how I made my tiered ruffled shower curtain, and it's inspired by one that I found in Anthropology. I really like that magazine, and I've actually gotten a couple things, but I figured I'd give it a shot and see if I could try and make something. And since I like that so much, I figured I'd try and make that. So what I did before I got started was basically map out a game plan. So I drew out the dimensions of the shower curtain, which, you know, the end dimensions are supposed to be 72 by 72. I think mine are a little off, but, you know, it's just for me, so it doesn't really matter. So I drew that out, and then I also did like a step-by-step plan, and this is just for myself. So if you're ever trying to figure out how you want to make something, it really helps to gather your thoughts, write it down, especially if it's something you've never made before. With this project, I've never done ruffles, I've never dyed anything, and I've never done buttonholes. So 3 new things for me on here. So yeah, but anyway, so yeah, we'll get started. So your first step is going to be to cut and measure the full size flat sheet, and you want the end measurement to be 72 by 72, so make sure you give yourself a seam, allowance around that. So I think I did like 73 by 73 or something. So after you're done with the full size sheet and you have your edges finished, you can actually set that aside, because next you're going to be working with the king size sheet. What you're going to do is cut the king size sheet into strips of fabric. And how I did this, because it's a rather big sheet, I actually folded it in half a couple times and cut it that way, because my kitchen floor is not really that big, and that's about the only area that I use for cutting right now. So what I did is I folded in half a couple times. That way it was just more manageable. Try and do it kind of neat though, that way you get as straight edges as you can, because, well, I didn't, but that's okay. Like I said, it's mine, so it doesn't really matter. So you're gonna cut those. So after you cut all of your strips of fabric, there should be 10 total, you want to finish those raw edges as well, which will be on the top and the bottom, because your ends should already be finished, because you're going to use the whole width of the king size sheet. After the strips of fabric are all finished, as far as the edges being finished, you are going to ruffle them. So after you get done ruffling your strips of fabric, you're ready to dye them. Or if you got like a print or something, then you can skip this step. It doesn't really apply to you. But I chose to dye them because I wanted to try and see if I could get the ombre effect. And how I did that was I followed the instructions on the Rit dye, and I used the wine color. And basically it said to let the fabric sit in the mixture for 30 to 60 minutes. So in my head, if I took one strip of fabric out every 6 minutes, then, you know, the one that I took out first to the one that I took out last would be a nice ombre effect. And I was wrong. It didn't really work that way. I mean, the first one I took out is definitely lighter, and the bottom one, the last one that I took out, is definitely darker, but it wasn't as obvious as an effect as I wanted. So after after your strips of fabric are all dry, you are basically ready to start sewing them on your sheet, the full sheet, the one we started with. So what you do is you take whatever strip of fabric is going to be at the bottom, and you start at the bottom first and then work your way up, because you're going to kind of layer them ever so slightly. So you start at the bottom, place it where you need to place it. I don't have exact measurements for you because honestly that would mean I would have to cut and sew completely perfectly, and I don't do that. So you just put on one strip at a time, sew that strip on, and then move up to the next one. And then my strips of fabric also, because I didn't ruffle them quite enough, ended up being wider. So what I did was just correct it in the pinning, and I just did a couple, a few tucks on each one. And in retrospect, that's probably how I could have actually done my ruffles, and definitely have saved myself a little bit of time. Instead of going through and ruffling each piece, I could have pinned the ruffles onto the back piece of fabric. But, you learn as you go, I guess. So, yeah, start doing that, and I'll show you kind of, the gradual steps of what it'll look like. After you sew your ruffles on, you're ready for the holes where you're going to be able to hang up the shower curtain. And you can either do buttonholes or grommets. If you don't want to spend any extra money, go with buttonholes, because obviously the only thing it's going to really cost you is the thread. And you could probably even, if you want to, do this step while your strips of fabric are drying. But the reason I didn't is because I just didn't feel like it, and it was late at night and I was tired. So I made that my last step. But it just depends on, it really doesn't matter which order you do it, but that's just what I did last. So I wanted to show you my finished curtain hanging up, and real quick show you some of the things I actually messed up on. One, right here there's a seam for the top of actually the sheet, and that's where I wanted my first ruffle to go, and it didn't make it that far. And I even tried to make it so each ruffle barely covered the top of the first seam, so I could get it to go up as far as I could. Before I actually pinned everything and sewed it, I did lay it all out first, and I just knew that I was going to be shy. Another thing, I did mess up on some of my buttonholes. That's okay. No one will really notice except me. Also, make sure you finish up your work and stuff. You can see I have a thread there hanging. I still have to go through and do all the finishing touches. And my favorite of my mistakes is I apparently had a hard time counting last night when I was doing this, and you can't tell now. It looks like I have the right amount of holes and whatnot, but it's a lie. I made one too many buttonholes. But it worked out because whenever I was cutting this sheet, I cut the edge of it. So now this extra buttonhole actually gave me a way to hide it. So I just fold it over and hang it up. So yeah, this is mine. And it's not too bad. It's not the best. But it's not the worst. And considering it's my first time trying it, I'm pretty happy with it. So, unless if you want to line the back of your shower curtain, you are all done. If you have any other questions, if you want me to explain anything in detail, if I maybe missed something, just leave a comment and I will answer your questions best I can. And if you do make one, please, I would like to see what you decided to do with yours and what direction you decided to take. And thank you for watching, and I will see y'all later.